we believe that these universities serve a bigger purpose than just educating. They're educating from a Christian worldview, and I think Lightwell is ensuring from a Christian worldview, and because of those two things, there's significant alignment.
What are the unique things that Christian universities face today, and how can insurance help them fulfill their mission? Here to speak about that today are Nate Spite, Vice President, and Jordan Dammeyer, Senior Account Manager, both from Lightwell in Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan. This is the Lightwell Podcast. Thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So in our last episode of the podcast, we spoke at length about the unique needs of K through 12 Christian schools. But we're here to talk to you guys today because you have a unique kind of relationship with Christian universities in your area. And so we want to learn about that. So what are the unique needs that you guys see that Christian universities face that might be different from, say, non-Christian university counterparts?
Yeah, I would start out by saying that, of course, a lot of those things are similar. They may deal with Title VII, deal with Title IX, just like a non-Christian faith-based organization or a Christian faith-based university would. But because of their faith, because of their convictions, because of some of the ways that they may interpret or make religious-based decisions, it can complicate the Title IX challenges that they already face. And so I'm going to let Jordan elaborate a little bit on Title IX and how we have found that the Christian, our ability to understand it from a Christian worldview can help these universities.
Religion is a protected class under Title IX. Title IX prohibits discrimination, especially for those who receive, certain types of funding, mostly the way that students get their student aid. And so, campuses have like a community life covenant, life together, or rules about how you behave. You have to sign a statement of faith, things like that. And so colleges will make potentially a hiring decision, termination decision, admissions decision based on adherence to that covenant. And so that can sometimes seem like it's in conflict with Title IX. And so helping them navigate through those dicier situations.
Okay, so with those unique things about Christian universities in mind, how does Lightwell tailor its approach or its protection of Christian universities to their needs?
That's a great question. One of the things that we've done as an agency that I find puts us in a somewhat of a unique position and helps our ministries, or at least the universities that we've talked to have found quite a bit of value in this, is we'll do a free legal review of their Title IX training and what potential they have. They have training that they use through other organizations, maybe an attorney's firm. But we take a legal team and we review that, looking at it through the lens of a biblical worldview, or trying to, coincide their Title IX training with their belief system and look for potential threats, potential gaps. And we do the same thing with their employee handbook and their minors on campus policy. And we make sure that all of those documents are speaking to one another. And we make sure that there's a consistency across the campus and across the different departments on how those policies and procedures would play out. And so that we make sure that we've got adequate liability coverage to back those based off of the policies.
There's not a one-size-fits-all approach to any of the universities. Everybody has different needs. Everybody has different skill sets among their senior leadership and staff. And so just having that really open communication on how can we best serve you? How can we best, be a member of your staff, basically.
That's very good.
Yeah, and I just to add to that a little bit further, one of the things that we've done that is difficult to scale at times, and so a lot of insurance agencies may have a challenge with this, is we have tried to have what we call a roll up the sleeves meeting with each university to find out, how is your structure set up? Sometimes you have a CFO that is managing multiple different facets, and insurance just happened to be one of those. And so then we have other universities that have an entire risk management department that are very capable of creating some of these documents. And so in some cases, we're just helping refine documents that have already been created. In other cases, we've created them from scratch because they didn't have the capabilities to do that.
That is really good. So, okay, one thing about insurance is its best day is when it doesn't have to do its job, like when there isn't a claim that has to get covered and there isn't something that happens to a university or a ministry that slows down their operations. So, what are some of the things that you all encourage Christian universities to do to manage risk? What are the things they can do to be proactive that are unique to Christian universities to help be good risk managers?
There's a lot they can do on the property side, with, automated water valve shutoffs, things like that. The same things that you would talk about with a church or any other kind of ministry. But then on the liability side, a lot of them are managing a lot of vendors coming in and out of their buildings. They're doing a lot of construction projects and stuff, and so doing contract reviews, talking to them about what insurance requirements they have of their vendors, so they're not taking on risk unnecessarily there. Auto is a huge, huge exposure. They're driving students a lot. They have large fleet. And so to talk about their controls with who are you letting drive your vehicles? What kind of screening are you doing? What kind of qualifications do you have once you get that MDR back? Who controls the keys? Things like that.
We've taken the approach with most of our clients that we're on their staff, we're just not on their payroll. And so we're stepping in and trying to think about it. How do we help them continue their operations? Because even, we talk about on the minors on campus. Well, some universities, recruitment style is to have minors come onto the campus and spend a weekend or spend a night on the university campus, staying in a dorm. And how do we make sure that they can continue to do that so that they can get people on their campus, get young, prospective students on their campus, but also not expose themselves from a liability perspective. And so we work really hard to try and make sure that we're advising on those type of things. So you ask what specific risk management can they be doing or that we're advising on. It really depends on the setup of the university, how much dorms they have, what's their online presence compared to their on-campus presence. How many campuses do they have? All of those things. But Jordan hit the nail on the head that we are always just trying to be a conduit and find vendors that fit their needs, find a protocol or policies and procedures that would help them continue their operations, but do it as safe as possible.
Yeah, that's really exactly what I was asking. That's perfect. And you guys both mentioned the word liability. And what people often probably think of it with insurance, even university staff might think of with insurance, is we've got a lot of buildings. We have all these buildings all over our campus, but there are a lot of less tangible risks that come with the liability side of insurance. And even for Christian universities, those things can be really unique. Things like sending kids on a mission. What are some of those unique events or things that are present for Christian universities on the liability side, less the property side?
So one of the things that we've seen quite a bit of lately is grants available for community outreach. And so they have the opportunity to do things like have their early childhood education programs start like a child care program for the community. And so it's a really cool that they get these funding sources, but then it's a unique insurance exposure to have. Okay, we're an educational facility, we're a university, but we're also providing this service to our community, and so that outreach component is fun and challenging to navigate from an insurance perspective.
Okay, so with a lot of students and people on campus, how do you address insurance needs for on-campus housing? So students that live on campus, present a unique risk. So how do you address that through insurance?
Yeah, that is a challenge. Uh, it's a challenge in a lot of different facets because it is dormitories, it's habitational, it's an exposure that is inherent for risk because you've got 24-hour, 24/7
Right.
people coming in and out of the facilities. There's you're talking college students a lot of times. They're having a good time, getting a little bit of sense of freedom away from their family and enjoying campus life. And so they're the best thing we can do is help them advise, as far as the infrastructure they're building, the way that they're making sure that they've got all of the safety protocol in place to make sure whether it's something as simple as hardwire smoke detectors and fire alarms in there from a fire safety perspective, but it's also making sure that they've got adequate accident protocol in place. So student accident insurance is a total different animal outside of the property and liability component. And so we're advising, working with vendors on that to determine, okay, when and where should this come into play, and for example, one real life example is we had a university that was having a ton of slip and falls coming in and out of the dorms on a snowy day. And so they called us and they said, is there any type of campaign that we can do to keep people from slipping and falling? And the short answer is like, I mean, no. We can put salt down on the ground, but we came up with a fun, student shuffle email campaign that we helped them create to go out to, and they just mass sent it out to all their students to be like, hey, it's icy, be careful. And so, I don't know that I'm answering your question, Adam,
No, that's
but
good. Do the student shuffle.
yeah, do the student shuffle. All of these things are just, par for the course when it comes to
Right.
university, making sure that we've got adequate railings in place, adequate ADA compliant, which most of them are anyway. And so, yeah, that's how we help with the housing part. There's not much we can do other than make sure that they're keeping up on that. We're talking college students, guys,
Right.
college
Right.
students.
That's right. So, okay, you had mentioned a real life example. That was a great one about advocating for just shuffling rather than boldly walking across ice and sliding and falling. But w- without giving the game away and saying any details we ought not to, can you give an example of a challenging situation you've walked through with a Christian university, kind of to illustrate how this process can work for a Christian university person who might be listening to this podcast now?
We had one come up not too long ago where the CFO called and said, like, hey, we have a student who is hearing impaired. And in her dormitory, the automatic smoke detectors are only audible. They're not, there's no lights involved. A lot of them have strobe lights. And she doesn't want to move to our different dorm building that does have that because she's with all her friends and they have such a tight bond and stuff. And so trying to navigate that as gently as possible, where obviously we need to be able to keep her safe, right? In the
Mm.
event, like if something happens when she's asleep. Also, like the college experience is a big deal. That's why you pick that university sometimes. And so we found a like plug-in smoke detector. It's not hardwired to the building, but it plugs in and it somehow connects to the other ones. It does have that strobe light component. And so we were able to figure out how we could keep her with her friends, but also like reduce the risk of something happening at night.
Yeah, that's a great example, Jordan.
That's really good. Okay, so this may or may not apply. So if it doesn't, then we can keep moving. But in your area, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, have you ever walked a Christian university through recovering from a natural disaster, tornado, something that affects something in the Midwest, like your guys' area?
Our biggest issue has been, since we've been in this space, is frozen pipes. And we walked through several campuses, walked them through December of 2022, which was Winter Storm Elliott.
Yeah.
Despite having adequate heat in the buildings, when you talk of frozen pipe bust in a dormitory on the third story that leaks down into multiple different dorms, we help them identify business interruption coverage to get their students set up in other apartments to make sure that one of them happened to be right as a parent visit was coming for the second semester. And so we had to quickly help them pivot. And so we stepped in and kind of played a role that's not really insurance with them, but help them be the liaison of getting everything set up and what we call it ministry continuation,
Right.
working forward with them and tying that into the limits that they have in their coverage. Thankfully, we ended up being able to solve all of those problems for them. But our biggest habitual issue has been the frozen pipes with a little bit of wind, hail, but we have not had an F5 tornado hit, directly on a campus or anything like that.
Yeah. Thank goodness. If I may, Nate, can we talk a little bit more about what you mean when you say ministry continuation coverage? Because I actually am really fascinated by this. I think this is a very important thing for people to understand what you mean when you say that.
Yeah, so there's a coverage that's built into most companies' forms called business interruption coverage, and it has an add-on that you can purchase, and most of the time it's built in, called extra expenses. And so our biggest objective is not to help them to just recoup lost revenue, but how do we get them to continue the operation so that they don't have to cease their ministry operations? How do we
Right.
help them to not disrupt the semester where their students have to go back home because they don't have anywhere to stay because they don't have enough beds? Or if it were to be, we had a situation where it wasn't a claim, but they had a very challenging situation in their cafeteria that feeds all of their students breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. And we ended up helping them navigate through creating a plan, and we helped them ensure their plan to bring in food trucks. They converted part of their science wing into a pseudo cafeteria for a period of time while they renovated their entire dining hall. And so again, a lot of that was on the university's planning. We didn't do a whole lot, but we helped them think through the risk management of that. We helped them think through the logistics of that. We made sure that all of the components of that temporary setup so that they could continue having meals for their students every single day, which is part of their tuition. We made sure that that was without disruption from an insurance perspective.
That's really good. I really like the distinction there in the way you articulated that. The difference between the spirit of that is not just to recoup lost income or missed expenses, but really, if your university, their activities are considered a ministry to students and a ministry to the community in the area, then there's something missing if they have to stop things, even if they can recoup that expense or that income. So it's
That's
really
exactly
about
right.
keeping them going and not just about the financial part of that. I love that.
That was a
That's
better
really
answer than mine, Adam. Good job.
good.
You knew
Thank
the
you.
answer.
We've never met before, have we?
Yeah.
Okay, so in your area of working with Christian universities, what are the trends that maybe through your conversations with administrators at universities now, or just being a student of this environment, what are the trends that are on the horizon for this group of organizations across the country?
Well, there's a couple trends that we've seen, and Jordan and I both attend every year for the last several years the ABAC conference, which speaks to some of these trends. But the trends that a lot of, especially Christian universities, but all universities really are facing is one is called the Great Cliff, which they're saying there's going to be a great drop off of students just by nature of baby boomers going on, and there not being as many kids in the pool, if you will. So that's a trend that they're worried about from a financial perspective. And almost equal with that would be cyber exposure to the university, especially with AI, deep fakes. We've seen a lot of really creative attempts at hacking and getting into systems using AI and fake voices and fake deep
Wow.
fake videos we had a quick example. We had it wasn't one of our universities, but a university that we're connected with, that the CFO got a call from the president of the university, left a voicemail, and it sounded exactly like the president.
Wow.
And there was only a couple phrases that made the CFO think like, I don't know that he would say that. And otherwise he given the CFO instructions on that voice message of what to do. And it was not the president of the university. And so making sure from an insurance perspective that we've got adequate cyber liability in place in case there's a loss, but most importantly, that there's protocol in place to avoid them from having that breach that could disrupt their operations significantly. Make sure that they've got the proper protocol in place so that their systems are protected or at least isolated and siloed. And so the great news is we work with cyber brokers and cyber companies that do actual testing on their client base, and they look for vulnerabilities, they look for weak spots that they can come in, and they actually even test that and then give a report every year to the client, to the university, on some areas that they would recommend that they improve on. So we work collaboratively with them to help do that and to make sure that they've got the right cyber carrier to help with that. As far as the Great Cliff I described on the front end, not much we can do about that other than helping to help the total cost of risk. We use that phrase a lot. And so the total cost, it's not our phrase, but it's a phrase we use a lot. And it's the total cost of risk. How do we help drive down insurance premiums or create savings through risk management so that they can absorb any potential financial challenges that may be coming because of that?
That's really good. Jordan, I'm going to throw this next question to you first. So be ready. If you were to give advice to an administrator at a university on how to be a savvy consumer of insurance, like what coaching would you give to a Christian university administrator on how to ask the right questions or how do they approach this process so that they're really well informed?
So this is going to sound a little bit self-serving, but pick a broker who knows this space. Because you, as the CFO, don't have time to know what all of the right questions are or how to ask them or when to ask them. It's just not something that a CFO, like we spend a lot of hours of our week doing that, and it's not something that a CFO can reasonably add to their plate. So hire somebody who you trust to navigate that on your behalf and to be your advisor.
It's a great answer. Nate, would you have anything to add to that?
That was a great answer. I really have nothing to add to that other than, I mean, I guess I'm just embellishing what Jordan already said, and the fact that we run across this on a regular basis where when we've done a bidding process, even the ones that we've controlled, it is challenging for the insured or the CFO or the risk coordinator to understand all the nuances that each insurance company is looking for out in the marketplace. And if you don't have a broker that has your best interests at heart, if they're looking to just retain an account or retain a client, they may not be looking at the best lens of how to insure this. And we certainly do that for sure.
So I'm going a little bit off script here to ask this, but are there any specific questions that you might equip these business administrators with to suss that out, to sort of figure out, does this broker or this agent that I'm working with really understand what my university needs?
Yeah, my first question would be how much time has your broker spent on your campus? The challenge that we run into is you can get an insurance quote if you gather enough data that's already existing. So if I'm a CFO and I hand a bunch of data to a broker, that broker feasibly can get a quote for you that is very similar to the program that you may have in place on the surface. But does that broker understand what's happening on your campus besides what they can find in the insurance policy? Where our process, partially due to the partnership with Brotherhood Mutual and the way that Brotherhood Mutual assesses the property risk, it requires Jordan and I and our team to spend multiple days, not just a couple hours, but multiple days and potentially weeks putting together replacement cost estimators that we can't just take a statement of values and create. We actually have to be on the boots on the ground and walk through every building on campus to understand what's happening in that building. What's the exposure in that building? How old is that building? When was the last update? And going and doing that and recreating that on every single building on their campus. And we have one campus that we work with that has close to 100 rental properties that surround their campus that we went to every single one and took pictures and assessed the value of that and did a replacement cost estimate on every single one of those. And we found out that university's total property blanket was close to $150 million underinsured.
Wow.
That's significant. And we would not have known that if we just took and did an apples to apples quote with what they currently had. So yeah, that is something that we find very valuable that I think that would be the first question I would ask.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Jordan, would you have anything to add to that?
But I would ask, just kind of on the reactive side, are the answers that you're getting to your risk management questions, are they meaningful to you? Are they actionable to you? And are you getting a prompt response? Because that's important. Like, they don't have time to wait all day. And so a broker that's equipped to respond quickly, but also with deep expertise in this space, I think has a lot of value.
That's excellent. Okay, so let's talk about Lightwell and how you all, work for this agency in your area, but it's a part of this national agency network of Lightwell that's brought together by a similar mission to support and advance ministry everywhere. So how do you guys incorporate those values into the way that you do business? And for the sake of this conversation, the way you do business in particular with Christian universities. How do you live out that mission?
My answer is going to sound super cliche or maybe even uh, like I'm embellishing or just trying to be holier than thou or something. But ultimately, I look at these Christian universities as not just a client, not just a university, but we look at them as an avenue of sharing the gospel, spreading the gospel, advancing the kingdom. And we take that approach when we walk in there. We're treating it as a ministry. And that's why I can, with confidence, say what I said earlier, that we do look at that we're on staff and just not on their payroll, and that we do take that responsibility seriously. And they're not just our clients, and everyone uses the word partnership, and everyone means something different by that. But what we mean by that is that we are there to serve them And we have done, we have done a lot of work without any potential expectation of anything in return. For some universities we work with, we don't even have all their business, but we continue to serve them as though they're part of the church because we are there to serve in the kingdom. So as far as being unique, I don't know that there's not other agencies or other agents out there that don't have this worldview or this belief system, but that is our agency's core value, and our agency's core mission is to shed light on areas that would otherwise be dark. And whether that's finding coverage gaps or exposures, or whether that's just helping them navigate through a really challenging Title IX situation, or having empathy about what happened with the employee that had to be let go, just all of those different things, whether we're providing them with legal assistance or HR consulting, we understand that those are ministry dollars, and we try to take those ministry dollars and make them go further. We look at each university as a beacon, just like we would a church sitting on the corner of a city street that is trying to pull people out of the grasp of hell. And we believe that these universities serve a bigger purpose than just educating. They're educating from a Christian worldview, and I think Lightwell is ensuring from a Christian worldview, and because of those two things, there's significant alignment.
That's really good. Jordan, would you have anything you'd want to shed light
I
on
just
that?
add, like, serving as unto the Lord. Like, they're gonna get my best no matter what's going on, because, like, I'm not just serving the risk manager, I'm not just serving the CFO, I'm not just serving the university, serving as unto the Lord.
You guys are fantastic. I really appreciate your time today. Nate Spite and Jordan Dammeyer from Lightwell in Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan. Thank you both so much for your time today and for the work you're doing to support Christian universities and Christian ministries in the area. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
What a great conversation we had. And really thank you for joining us today, however you made this part of your day. I hope this brought some help or shed some light for you. And until the next episode of the podcast, let's go and let it shine.